Topic number 2 today. The top 100 players of the 21st century was a buzzy topic online last week because Zach Edey was ranked first on this list.
Yep.
This list came, I believe this was from the CBK Report account, or at least it looks like a CBK Report tweet.
They tweeted it out, but it was from 107.5 The Fan.
107.5 The Fan. Okay. So I saw this on my timeline because an account from Sam Stavrakos quote tweeted this and said, "There's no universe in which Zach Edey was a better player than Carmelo Anthony. Having Edey in the top 10 is crazy enough." End of discussion. This went viral on our timelines because we have big Purdue people on our timelines. And the top 10 on this list, 107.5 The Fan, who made this list. Zach Edey was 1, Anthony Davis was 2, Carmelo Anthony was 3, Kevin Durant was 4, Zion Williamson 5, Kemba Walker 6, Jalen Brunson 7, Blake Griffin 8, Jay Williams 9, Tyler Hansbrough 10. We can go on. Like, it goes to Jimmer Fredette, Steph Curry, Emeka Okafor, Greg Oden, JJ Redick, Trae Young, Michael Beasley, Dwayne Wade, Doug McDermott, Adam Morrison. It would be fun to make our list of this at some point and actually like promote it. But for now, Zach Edey being the best player of the 21st century, is that crazy? Yes or no?
No, because he is the first back-to-back National Player of the Year winner since the 90s, the 80s, right? Was it since Ralph Sampson?
Ralph Sampson, Bill Walton are the only other two.
Yeah, 80. So, like, it's not crazy. He's done something that nobody else has done this century. I think if you want to debate somebody else at one, it's how much do national championships matter?
Bingo. That's my pushback on this. So when I made some lists like this for the Field of 68, when I was working on social media for them a couple years ago, I always put Jalen Brunson first. Always. Because 2 national championships meant by far the most to me out of everything on this list. If you won National Player of the Year and you won 2 championships, who is matching that resume-wise? You're just not, you can't find me a player. Nobody on the Florida teams won.
Yeah. Do you get into any of the Steph Curry stuff, though, where he didn't win Final Four MOP and wasn't, you could say, like the best player on those teams during the runs? He was the best player on the 2018 team. But do you get into any of that?
I don't. Personally, I don't. Because I think being the best player in a 2-game sample size is a lot less important to me than being the best player over a full season. And that year, whatever year that was 2018, whatever year it was, Villanova won the second title.
Yep.
Jalen Brunson was the best player in the country the whole year. So, like, with all due respect to his Villanova teammates who were great, that team was loaded. We know that. Like, you have to have an era or a year to be a top 10 guy this century that's like, that was the blank year. The Jalen Brunson year was a thing, and then he also won another national championship. Edey is special and deserves to be near the top of this list because there were 2 Zach Edey years. There was the Zach Edey year where Zach Edey lost to a 16 seed, and then there was the Zach Edey year where they lost to UConn in the national championship game. The biggest gripe against Zach Edey that I have, or anyone should have at this point, is that the Zach Edey era, what will be remembered as the Zach Edey era, is actually the Dan Hurley era. And I don't know how to square that, because the 2 seasons that this man was the most dominant force we've ever seen, we saw a more dominant person cut down the nets twice. And Edey had his chance at him. He had a 40 ball. He was individually flawless, but still didn't get that resume mark. You know, it's tough for me to add up.
Well, that's the difference, right? I think you can make an argument either way. It's how much team success matters, because he took that team to the national championship game and he put up historic numbers in that championship game that nobody else has ever done before. And they lost because everybody else stunk up the joint. Do you hold that against him when discussed? Because if Braden Smith makes a couple threes, if Lance Jones makes a couple threes, I don't think the outcome of that game is different, but it might be. It might be. And then I don't think it's a debate. Yeah. And so essentially you're saying that he is not number 1 because of what other people did.
Yeah, I hear that. And you're right. It's a good point about, like, he should be remembered for being the guy that got Matt Painter over the hump. Like, that alone is a massive accomplishment. Like taking a guy who had a reputation as one of the biggest underachievers in March and spinning him to the national championship game where you put up 40 is crazy. Um, this list had Tyler Hansbrough at 10. One of the biggest things I've heard when people just try to evaluate Edey the player and his Hall of Fame greatness, like I called him the best player I've seen in my lifetime. And people were screaming at me, did you not watch Tyler Hansbrough? You're 30. Where were you? To me, Zach Edey was better than Tyler Hansbrough, but Tyler Hansbrough was the second best player I've seen in my lifetime. I don't know how he lands 10th on this list. What does that feel like to you?
I think he should be higher than Blake Griffin, certainly. Now, I don't think Blake Griffin's college career gets enough credit because that dude was ridiculous. If you want to see some fun basketball, go watch highlights of the game where Davidson played at Oklahoma with Steph Curry and Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
Like it's a video of the ESPN highlight, and on the like recap where they have the score and the stats, they both had like 40 in that game. Where it's like, oh yeah, great games for Steph and Blake. That's absurd. Anyway, he should be ahead of Blake. I think you can make cases. He should probably be ahead of Zion too. But like the cases for Zion, KD, and even Anthony Davis too, to an extent, were just how absolutely dominant they were. It was easy to get overwhelmed with the Zion hype and the Duke stuff, but we haven't seen anybody before or since have the kind of impact that Zion would have on a game.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant was the first freshman to win the National Player of the Year, which now doesn't seem super duper crazy, but he also averaged like 26 and 11.
Yeah.
26 and 11. That's absurd. And you didn't have the team success, all that stuff. Like you can make cases for a number of guys on here, but I think Tyler Hansbrough would have to be top 10. This may be a little controversial too. This is just players, not tournament runs. I think Kemba's too high.
Ooh.
Like I think you swap Hansbrough and Kemba. Because Kemba's tournament run was the greatest of all time. That team was also 9th in the Big East, and that was his best year.
Yeah. I hear that. So I think my biggest gripe with this list, or what I would do differently, I think you can make arguments for whatever you want when you do an exercise like this. My biggest gripe would be I don't think the one and dones should each have a place in this top 5. I just don't. We're talking college basketball players. We're not talking how great did they end up in the NBA. And Anthony Davis was fantastic in college. He also had a game with 6 points and 4 rebounds against Cody Zeller. Like he was great. He was the best shot blocker I've seen in my life in college for a season, and they won a national championship. But was he the second best college basketball player I've watched in my 30 years? No, he wasn't. He had a very good season. That was it. Carmelo Anthony won a national championship as well, and was the reason I fell in love with basketball itself. Like it's the first jersey I ever bought. He's my favorite player ever. I don't think his individual season at Syracuse is the best ever. Kevin Durant at 4 is the wildest of the one and dones to me, and he had the best statistical season of these guys by far. But those Texas teams didn't do anything of note, and I think Zion, for the hype that was Zion, you can make an argument he belongs here. But I have a really hard time saying any of those 4 guys belong anywhere on a list with guys that played 4 years and won championships. Like Tyler Hansbrough and Jalen Brunson, to me, should absolutely be in the top 3. If we're putting Zach Edey somewhere in the top 3, like those guys have defined college basketball to me in a way that a one and done just never could. And then if you want to do the talent game, you can do that next. But that was my gripe with this list, is like a lot of one and dones, 2 of whom didn't win shit in your top 5. That feels wrong. Where would you give me your actual top 5? If you're making this list, what is your top 5?
Okay. I have this pulled up. I need to come back to this because I'm going to fix your Kevin Durant opinion. I do think I have Edey at 1. I have Hansbrough at 2. Jalen Brunson at 3. I'm going to keep Kevin Durant at 4. and I'm going to go Jay Williams at 5. I'm moving Jay Williams up. Jay Williams won like 1.5 National Players of the Year. He won the consensus 1 year, and then before that, he split them. I think it was with Shane Battier, his teammate. But that 2001 Duke team was one of the greatest of all time, and they made the Final Four the next year too.
Yeah.
Like he was a part of some like because he's the earlier part, we tend to forget like how great those Duke teams were and how good and vital he was to that, particularly because his NBA career was cut short with the motorcycle accident. He was the best college basketball player of that time.
Yeah.
Me. I think he's got to be number 5. I'll put him at 4 and KD at 5 because he's got the championships. I'll put KD at 5. The reason I have KD at 5, and I think KD has to be top 5. If you want to tell me they did not make it out of the first weekend, I will understand that. I will tell you that KD had 30 and 9 in that game, and he was not the reason why. He had 27 in the first round game. Conference tournament against Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. He had 29, 26, and 37, and his averages for the season went down. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games with less than 20 points on the season. He had more games with 30 plus than he had less than 20. And he averaged 20. He averaged 26 and 11.
Yeah, but here's the problem. A different one and done was as good as him, had a better team success season that year.
Who?
The same guy that year that went ahead of him in the draft went to the national championship game. And if we were saying whose year was it in college basketball from those one and dones, it was the Greg Oden year.
Disagree.
It was
one of them was named the better college basketball player, and it was Kevin Durant. He won National Player of the Year.
And one of them went to the title game and was taken first overall.
One of them also had Mike Conley, who was still playing in the NBA, and Daquan Cook, who also got picked in the first round.
I understand. I think it was a debate. That's all I'm saying. And there can't be a debate for the guy who's rated 5th on this list. Like, and Oden was rated 13th or 14th on the original list. Can you repeat your 5 in order for me though, real quick? Sorry.
Zach Edey.
81.
81. Tyler Hansbrough. Jalen Brunson. Jay Williams. Kevin Durant.
All right. So I think the top
Kevin Durant is my mellow for you. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's fine. I respect. I think those top 3 should be that top 3 in order. I would go Jalen Brunson 1. I would go Zach Edey 2. I would go Tyler Hansbrough 3. And I wouldn't hate someone putting Hansbrough 2 and Edey 3 just because Hansbrough got the chip. Zach Edey did not get the chip. But I'm gonna go Edey 2 over Hansbrough because I just believe he was a better player, straight up. From there, I really think it's so messy. Like, I don't feel good about putting anybody 4 here. I'm going to put Jay Will 4. You talked me into Jay Will belonging.
I will pound that table.
And I'll put Kemba Walker 5. I like him over the one and done guys. And
fair enough.
There's your list. Fun topic.